Hi, I'm Bri Greg. I've got a question here by somebody who objects to the idea of prostrating to Buddha images. And he says, it seems like blind adulation, and the real respect will be in our own hearts. Who are we showing off to? So, prostrating to the Buddha. Many Westerners have problems with the idea of prostrating to Buddha statues. And I believe that a lot of it comes from the religions of the West, where we bow down and we worship a supreme deity. Supreme deity who has the power over where we're reborn, is the word for it. Now when you die, you either go to heaven or you go to hell, according to Western theistic belief. And so there's a lot of bowing down and praying and things like that. And so when people move away from that particular religious belief, they still carry a lot of baggage with them. And so the objection to bowing down before things like statues of the Buddha. And I can understand to a degree where this objection comes from. So we need to take a look at what it is that we're actually doing. When you come into a Buddhist temple and there are Buddha statues, it is normal that we prostrate 3 times to the Buddha. You also see the Thai people, they will prostrate to the monks, or they bring their hands up in Anjali when addressing a monk. Now, this isn't worship. Here in Thailand, for instance, it's just a normal thing. Everybody wise to a certain degree, or brings their hands up like this. Young children, why adults? Adults, why according to people's age, according to people's status in society. And it's the same with prostrating before the Buddha. When we prostrate before the Buddha, all we are doing is acknowledging our respect to our teacher. As you know, the Buddha rediscovered nearly 2,600 years ago the truth. And upon rediscovering that truth, he taught that truth until he died at the age of 80, attained parinibbana. And so we show respect to the Buddha by prostrating. When we come into a temple, we come into the sala, we come into the vihan, we prostrate before the Buddha. Now, it's true that the true respect would be in the heart, but then the true respect is actually for the Dhamma. The Buddha taught the Dhamma, but it's the Dhamma, the practice of the Dhamma, that will give us our enlightenment. It's not worshipping the Buddha. You know, you do see some people, they actually get down and they pray to the Buddha. That's actually not going to achieve very much. It might give you the warm fuzzies, but praying to Lord Buddha, well, you might as well pray to the flying spaghetti monster for all the good it's going to give you. Now it's true, some people may be showing off when they prostrate to the Buddha, but that's ego. And that's something that they have to deal with, something that they have to get through. But an objection to prostrating before a statue of the Buddha is also ego-driven. Why should I bow down? Why should I make myself smaller than you? And one of the reasons why we do this is to learn humility. When I first started coming to Thailand, I had all sorts of problems with prostrating before Buddha images. I felt stupid. I felt uncomfortable. But I did it because it's what the local people were doing. And something we have to take into consideration here is culture. We come to Thailand, we don't want to offend the Thai people. I was listening to a teaching by Ajahn Brahm just recently, and he was talking about culture. Now, here in Thailand, you never point at anything with your feet. You never point at anybody. You especially don't point at a Buddha statue. Thais can't believe it when they see us Westerners picking things up with our toes. It's unheard of in this country, you know. But that's a different culture. Now, Ajahn Brahms was saying if you want to go to one of his temples there in Australia, and if you fancy stretching out and your feet are pointing towards the Buddha, no problem, do it. In Australia, the culture is different. And so when we come into the temple, we put our humility to one side and we do the prostration. It's not worship. This is the big thing that Westerners need to understand. It's not about worshipping the Buddha. It is merely showing respect to the teacher. So, is it showing off? I certainly hope not. As I say, with some people, it may be. But that just means they have to work on things a little bit more. So, if you are travelling through, especially some of the Asian countries, just put that ego to one side. Watch what the locals do and follow suit. You know, we have people of many different religions come through our temple. And I understand that this is possibly one of the most difficult things for them to do. But it reminds me of a story I heard once about a monk and a rabbi. They'd been out somewhere that day, sharing together, having a nice time. And they got back to the monastery, and the monk invited the rabbi in to have a look around his temple. And the rabbi said to him, "No, I can't go in there." The monk goes, "Why not?" He said, "Because there's false idols." He said, "No, I'm not allowed to associate myself with false idols." At which stage the monk rummaged inside his robes and he had a Buddha statue. And he pulled the Buddha statue out and he threw it down on the ground and he smashed it. And the rabbi looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And the monk looked at the rabbi and said, "Now do that to your Torah." Now the point is, we don't need to worship the Buddha. We merely show respect to the teacher. I prostrate to my abbot because he is my teacher. So out of respect, he gets prostrations from me. He prostrates to monks who are more senior to him. It's just a natural thing. Eventually, the humility comes. And when the humility comes, when we're starting to knock the rough edges off that ego, you'll find these things, they don't upset you at all. But what we need to be cautious of is rites and rituals. And this is one of the biggest dangers. The other day we were on Pindabat on Arms Round, and one of the devotees who'd come out to place some alms into our alms bowl didn't have any water with them. Well, here in Thailand, when the Thai people make merit, they dedicate the virtuous merit to departed loved ones. They have a tendency, they carry some water around and they pour the water on the ground while the monks are doing some chanting, or even while they're chanting. Now, this gentleman, he'd forgotten to put water into his bottle. And so we explained to him, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's what was in your heart. You gave alms to the monks, and the virtuous merit accumulated from this deed you have offered up to your departed relatives. You don't need the water. It's not important. And then he smiled and seemed quite happy that we'd explained that it wasn't 100% necessary to be tipping water out on the ground. But often things do become ritualistic, and that's when it becomes a problem. So at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you prostrate or not. But when you're in a Thai temple, there are certain things that would be expected of you. And not to do so, you're not going to be struck down dead by the Buddha because you didn't prostrate. But you're possibly going to offend Thai sensibilities. And it takes a big person to say, I'm not going to trample on somebody's cultural sensitivity. So I hope that answers the question about why we prostrate, and I hope it puts you at ease that to do so is not to worship, it's just to show respect.